I want you to picture a genuinely jarring contrast for a moment. Just hold these two images in your head.
Okay.
So in the first image, you are watching the Chancellor of the Exchequer step up to a podium in London. The flashbulbs are going off, the press is buzzing, and she is essentially writing like the biggest single check in your nation's history.
Right, yeah.
We are talking billions of pounds, all earmarked to fuel this cutting-edge, world-altering technology. The rhetoric is soaring, right? It's all about global dominance and a utopian future.
A total golden age narrative.
Exactly. But now, on the exact same day, shift your focus to a small, quiet, local court in Scotland. A landlord is standing before a judge, confidently trying to evict someone from their home.
Right.
And the landlord cites this specific historical piece of legislation.
Right.
The only problem, that law does not actually exist.
No, it's totally fake.
It was completely flawlessly hallucinated by that very same technology the Chancellor is pouring billions into.
Yeah, I mean, it is the ultimate split-screen moment of our time. On one side, you have this incredibly aggressive, state-backed push toward a hyper-efficient, machine-driven future.
And the momentum is staggering.
It is. But then, on the other side, you have the deeply messy, high-stakes reality of human lives. Basic civic functions are colliding with a technology that we, frankly, do not fully understand, let alone control.
Well, welcome to the Deep Dive. Our mission for this session is to make sense of that massive gap. We have a towering stack of information sitting in front of us today, 41 different sources to be exact.
It's a heavy stack.
Yeah, we are pulling from deep dive articles, dense policy briefs, raw market updates, leak memos, all curated from late March 2026. And the goal is to extract the signal from the noise.
And, you know, when you synthesize these 41 documents, a very clear, very intense core tension emerges. It's almost physically palpable.
We are exploring the real-time friction between the UK government's multi-billion-pound investment to become a global AI superpower and the mounting undeniable evidence that our courts, our newsrooms, and our regulators
Have absolutely no idea how to govern what is actually being built.
None. Zero.
Right. We are pressing the accelerator through the floorboards while simultaneously realizing the steering column isn't actually connected to the wheels.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because before we can really dissect how the guardrails are failing, and trust me, they are failing spectacularly, we need to understand the sheer volume of fuel currently being pumped into this engine.
The scale of the ambition here is what makes the ensuing chaos so profound.
Let's talk about the money.
And it is an unprecedented amount of capital. Chancellor Rachel Reeves has just pledged a £2.5 billion package specifically targeting AI and quantum technologies.
$2.5 billion.
Yeah. She is framing this, alongside tightening EU ties and regional growth, as one of the three foundational pillars of the UK's economic future. The explicitly stated policy goal here is not just to participate in the AI boom, right? They want to achieve the fastest AI adoption rate across the entire G7.
2.5 billion pounds. I mean, that is not just tossing seed money at a few promising startups. That is attempting to buy the entire orchard.
Pretty much.
And a massive chunk of that, 500 million pounds, is being channeled into something called the Sovereign AI Fund. Break that down for me, because sovereign is a very loaded word in tech right now.
It is, and it's used very deliberately here. So this fund is launching in April, and it's anchored at the autonomous vehicle company Wave.
Okay.
The purpose of this £500 million war chest is highly specific. It is designed to provide British AI companies with raw funding, massive compute resources, and structural scaling support so that they don't, pack up and leave for California.
Oh, so it's a defensive play against the brain drain.
Precisely. Technology Secretary Liz Kendall was remarkably blunt about the historical context here. She explicitly pointed to DeepMind as the ultimate cautionary tale.
Right. DeepMind.
Yeah, DeepMind, for those who might not recall, was this brilliant generational AI lab based right in London. But in 2014, it was sold to Google for £400 million. Kendall is essentially saying, that was a catastrophic strategic error, and Britain cannot afford to repeat it.
Because Britain has an undeniable track record of producing world-class, paradigm-shifting tech talent.
Yeah.
But the commercial value, the actual monetary harvest of that brilliance, almost always flows back across the Atlantic.
Every single time.
You look at Silicon Valley titans like OpenAI and Anthropic, They have significant bases in the UK. They hire UK postdocs. But the ultimate financial windfalls, the trillion-dollar valuations, are firmly American.
Exactly. So the UK government is drawing a line in the sand. They are telling domestic founders, we will give you the server farms, we will give you the runway, just please keep the intellectual property and the tax revenue inside our borders.
Makes sense.
But what's fascinating is that this ambition isn't just limited to AI. They are placing an even longer-term £2 billion bet on quantum computing alongside it.
Which, I gotta say, feels like entirely different territory. I mean, AI is happening right now on our phones, but quantum still feels like it belongs in a university physics lab.
Yeah.
Why throw $2 billion at it today?
Because they are trying to anchor the industry before it fully matures. Part of that $2 billion includes a procurement program worth up to $1 billion just to acquire commercial-scale quantum computers.
Wow.
It's a massive flex on the global stage. It positions the UK as the first nation on Earth to commit to commercial-scale quantum deployment by the early 2030s. They want the first generation of functional, world-changing quantum machines to be bolted into British soil.
But here's where my mind really started melting when reading through these briefs. The infrastructure layer.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just about buying fancy computers or writing software. The government is having to fund the manipulation of the fundamental laws of physics just to make these future machines talk to each other. I'm looking at this £180 million allocation for the National Timing Center.
The atomic clocks. This is pure invisible infrastructure, and it is absolutely vital.
Right. If you're listening to this, you might be wondering, why on earth do we need to spend £180 million on atomic clocks just to run an AI network? The brief says these cesium clocks are accurate to 1 second in 160 million years. Why does an algorithm care about that level of precision?
It sounds totally absurd until you look at the mechanics of how data actually moves. Think about distributed AI systems, 5G cellular networks, or like a fleet of autonomous vehicles navigating a city center.
Okay.
These systems are firing billions of data packets back and forth at the speed of light. To process that data reliably, the computers on both ends of the transaction have to agree on the exact time the data was sent and received.
Down to the nanosecond.
Down to the nanosecond, exactly. If the timing between two data centers is off by even a microscopic fraction of a millisecond, the data packets essentially collide. The systems desynchronize, the algorithms get garbled data, and the entire network grinds to a halt. Currently, the UK, like most of the world, relies heavily on satellite-based GPS signals to provide that ultra-precise timing.
But satellites are vulnerable, they can be jammed, they can fail, or the weather can interfere.
And the National Physical Laboratory ran the numbers on that vulnerability. They estimate that a single day without those satellite timing services would cost the UK economy over £1.4 billion in lost digital transactions and network failures.
Like £1.4 billion in a single day.
In a single day. So spending $180 million to build a terrestrial ground-based network of cesium atomic clocks is essentially buying a permanent insurance policy for the foundational plumbing of the digital economy.
Okay, so we have the super precise timing.
Yeah.
But then there's the raw power required to actually crunch the numbers. We're looking at a £45 million AI supercomputer called Sunrise being built at the Culham campus in Oxfordshire. The spec sheet says it's delivering 6.76 exaflop PS of computing power. Break that down for me, because exaflop is one of those words that just bounces off the human brain.
Yeah, an exaflop is a measure of processing speed. One efflop is basically one mathematical calculation, like adding two numbers together.
Okay.
An exaflop is 1 quintillion calculations per second.
Quintillion?
That's a billion. To put 6.6 exaflop PS in perspective, if every single human being on Earth did one math problem every second, 24 hours a day, it would take humanity over 10 years to do what this supercomputer does in 1 single second.
That is deeply humbling. And what exactly are they using all that power for?
Specifically fusion energy modeling. Before scientists build the physical, dangerously hot, incredibly expensive components of a nuclear fusion reactor, Sunrise will run complete digital twins of the reactor.
So they simulate the whole thing?
Exactly. It simulates the plasma physics down to the atomic level to see what works and what breaks.
So wait, they are using an artificial intelligence supercomputer to figure out how to build a miniature star on Earth, which will hopefully generate enough clean electricity to power the next generation of artificial intelligence supercomputers.
It's a perfect loop.
That's incredible. And to round out this £2.5 billion package, they aren't ignoring the human element. Skills England is launching a massive Level 4 AI apprenticeship program, explicitly targeting the upskilling of 10 million workers by 2030.
It is a total mobilization of national resources. I mean, they are marshaling capital, rewriting the physical infrastructure, and attempting to rapidly re-engineer the labor force.
I look at the sheer scale of all this.
Mm.
The money, the clocks, the supercomputers, the 10 million workers, and the analogy that keeps coming to mind is aviation.
How so?
It feels like the government is pouring billions into building a massive fleet of supersonic jets, and they're rushing to train millions of people to be flight attendants and mechanics.
Right.
But we haven't even written the manual for the air traffic controllers yet. We are building the physical infrastructure so incredibly fast. I have to ask, is this reckless? Are we building too fast?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the global macroeconomic dynamics explain why the UK feels it has absolutely no choice but to sprint. You have to look at the research from Goldman Sachs included in our sources.
Okay.
The projections are staggering. They predict that within just 2 years, AI workloads will consume 30% of all global data center capacity.
30%. That's eating the internet.
And it requires immense power. Goldman Sachs projects that global power demand from data centers will rise 175% by 2030 compared to 2023 levels.
Which is the equivalent of adding the entire electricity consumption of a top 10 industrialized nation to the grid just to power these algorithms.
Precisely. And Goldman Sachs characterizes the current market behavior as a massive flight to quality.
What does that mean exactly?
Investors and governments have realized that trying to pick which specific AI software company will dominate in 10 years is incredibly risky. It's totally speculative. But the physical infrastructure, the server racks, the cooling systems, the exaflop supercomputers, the atomic clocks, the energy grids, that is where the tangible, undeniable value sits.
So it's the oldest rule in economics. During a gold rush, you don't bet on the prospectors, you sell the shovels.
Exactly. Regardless of whether an American company, a French company, or a British company ultimately builds the smartest AI model, they're all going to need that physical infrastructure to run it. The UK government is essentially trying to build the biggest, most advanced shovel factory in the world.
Okay, so the government is heavily funding the infrastructure.
Yeah.
They're laying down the asphalt for this massive digital highway.
Yeah.
But that begs a much more immediate question. How is the state actually driving on it? How is the government utilizing this technology internally right now? Because looking through these reports, there's a glaring contradiction in how the public sector operates.
There really is.
Let's call it the efficiency versus fundamental rights paradox.
It is a severe paradox. And, to be perfectly fair to the technology, when we look at the government's internal successes, the efficiency gains in certain areas are nothing short of miraculous. Let's start with where it is undeniably working.
Cool.
HM Land Registry has deployed a new AI tool that combines basic optical character recognition, which just reads text from an image, with advanced large language models to digitize historical property records.
Oh, this is the local land charges migration project, right?
Yeah.
Taking decades of dusty paper records from individual scattered local councils and forcing them into a single modern digital register.
Yes. They ran a pilot program with the London Borough of Newham. Historically, this is agonizing, error-prone work. The AI tool was tasked with extracting the raw text, structuring the data into the correct legal formats, and validating it against existing records.
And how did it do?
In this pilot, the AI completed the migration in just 4 weeks, requiring a human oversight team of only 4 people.
Wow. And what would that have looked like without the AI?
Doing that same batch manually would have required an estimated 20 staff members working for 3 solid months.
That's a huge difference.
But the most impressive part isn't the speed, it's the accuracy. Every single batch of AI processed data passed the final human quality checks on the very first try.
That is a staggering return on investment for local government budgets, which are famously stretched thin. And we are seeing a similarly massive impact in public health care. The sources highlight the Betsy Cadwaladr University Health Board in Wales.
Yes, their oncology department.
Right. They are using a platform called Page Pan Cancer Detect. What they do is take biopsy slides from patients, digitize them into high-resolution images, and feed them into the AI. The AI scans the cellular structures and flags potential malignancies.
And the impact on patient wait times is incredible. They have cut the time from the initial sample extraction to a confirmed cancer diagnosis from a grueling 3 months down to just 1 or 2 weeks.
Which, for a patient waiting to hear if they have cancer, is life-altering.
Absolutely. Because the AI is acting as a tireless, incredibly fast triage system, it catches the highly suspicious cases instantly, bringing them to the top of the pile rather than letting them sit in a queue for weeks, waiting for an overworked human pathologist to put the slide under a microscope.
So let's look at the pattern here. In highly structured, clearly defined environments, like reading standardized land registry forms or analyzing the strict visual geometry of a scanned biopsy slide, AI is proving to be a highly effective, deeply reliable tool.
Exactly.
It's an engine of pure efficiency. But wait,
Uh-huh.
you take this exact same underlying technology, these exact same language models, and you apply them to unstructured, deeply human, emotionally complex environments, and the wheels just completely fall off.
Which brings us to the Home Office asylum scandal. And this is where the utopian vision crashes hard into civic reality.
Just to set the table here, we are looking strictly at the operational facts presented in these legal briefs. We aren't debating the broader politics of immigration policy. We are looking at how a machine is being used to execute state power. What exactly is the Home Office doing?
According to a highly detailed 84-page legal opinion published by the Open Rights Group, the Home Office's current use of AI in processing asylum claims is likely unlawful.
Unlawful. Okay.
They are deploying two specific generative AI tools. One is called the Asylum Case Summarization Tool, or ACS, which is supposed to ingest the raw transcripts of applicant interviews and summarize them for human caseworkers.
And the second one?
The other is the Asylum Policy Search Tool, APS, which searches internal databases for country of origin information to verify if an applicant's story matches the geopolitical reality of their home country.
But the legal opinion points out a massive flaw in how these tools operate. These aren't just fancy search engines that point to a document. They use generative AI, which means they actively funnel, filter, and rewrite the facts to generate brand new text.
Exactly. They are synthesizing information. And anytime an AI synthesizes, it decides what to keep and what to throw away. It can omit crucial, nuanced material. And worse, it hallucinates. According to an internal Home Office pilot, the summarization tool produced factually inaccurate summaries 9% of the time.
Wait, hold on. A 9% error rate?
Yes.
In a system that is determining whether someone is deported back to a war zone or granted sanctuary. That is nearly 1 in 10 cases containing a machine-generated falsehood. How is that acceptable oversight?
Well, the authors of the legal opinion argue it absolutely isn't acceptable. Furthermore, they highlight a massive procedural failure. The asylum applicants are never shown the AI-generated output. In fact, they are not even informed that an AI is being used to process their case.
So if the AI accidentally hallucinates that you have a criminal record, or omits the fact that you were tortured, you have no way to defend yourself because you don't even know the machine said it.
Precisely. The legal experts argue this is a fundamental breach of common law rights to procedural fairness. You cannot correct an error in a summary you are legally barred from seeing.
That's terrifying.
Additionally, the tool processes highly sensitive personal data, details about a person's race, their religion, their sexual orientation, and the Home Office deployed it without publishing any equality impact assessment to ensure the algorithm isn't inherently biased.
So look at this paradox. On one hand, the state is using AI to read property deeds with 100% accuracy and total transparency. On the other hand, it's using the same tech to summarize life or death asylum interviews with a 9% error rate in total secrecy, potentially violating common law.
It's a stark contrast.
But the contradictions don't stop there. If we look at how the government actually buys this tech, the procurement side, it gets even more tangled. Look at the Palantir situation.
The Palantir contracts perfectly encapsulate the massive tension between the government's public policy rhetoric and its quiet operational reality. Just days ago, Science Minister Lord Valence stood before Parliament and stated very clearly for the public record that future government technology contracts will heavily prioritize British companies.
Okay, pushing a doctrine of data sovereignty.
Right. He explicitly said they want to procure innovation locally to build up the UK tech sector.
Which aligns perfectly with Rachel Reeves and the £500 million sovereign AI fund we just talked about.
Yeah.
The message is loud and clear. Buy British, build British, keep the data here.
Right. Yet in the very same week that Lord Valence gave that speech, the Financial Conduct Authority, the UK's primary financial regulator, awarded a highly sensitive contract to Palantir.
And Palantir is not British.
No, Palantir is a deeply entrenched US-based data analytics firm backed by Peter Thiel. The FCA is paying them upwards of £30,000 a week to run Palantir's AI platform against the FCA's internal intelligence holdings.
And what kind of data are we talking about here? This isn't just public stock prices, right?
No, at all. We are talking about the most sensitive financial intelligence the state possesses. Fraud reports, ongoing money laundering investigations, insider trading files, raw phone call recordings from bank trading floors, huge email archives.
Wow.
All of this unstructured, highly sensitive data is being fed into a system operated by a foreign AI company. Privacy lawyers are raising massive red flags because this enforcement data inevitably covers thousands of innocent people who just happen to be in an email chain or on a recorded call.
And this isn't even Palantir's biggest UK contract.
Yeah.
This is happening while the massive, deeply controversial £330 million NHS Federated Data Platform contract with Palantir remains completely in place. And that NHS contract is reportedly in turmoil.
It is facing severe headwinds. As the contract approaches crucial break clauses, there has been a massive exodus of the senior NHS technology leadership who originally championed and oversaw the deal.
It's a clean sweep. The chief information officer is gone, the chief technology officer is leaving, the chief data officer is departing. And meanwhile, the British Medical Association, the actual doctors on the ground, are instructing their members to actively limit their engagement with the platform due to privacy concerns.
It's falling apart from the inside.
So I have to ask, how does a government ask you, the average citizen, to place your faith in its utopian vision for a £2.5 billion AI-powered future when its own immigration department is secretly using error-prone algorithms to make life-altering decisions, and its procurement strategy completely ignores its own data sovereignty policies?
It creates a profound crisis of institutional credibility. When the state asks for public trust but operates behind a black box, the public naturally and rightfully recoils.
But this collapse in trust isn't staying neatly confined inside government borders. If the state can't trust its own data, how on earth are our other core institutions supposed to handle it? The governance gap is bleeding into every corner of society.
It really is.
We rely on certain foundational institutions to establish what is objectively real. Journalism, the legal system, the publishing industry. And right now, every single one of them is failing the AI stress test.
The examples from our source material this week are genuinely staggering because they show high-level professionals making fundamental cognitive errors. Let's start with journalism.
Okay.
Peter van der Merch is a very senior, highly respected journalist. He was the former head of Mediahuis' Irish operations. He is a man who literally wrote a blog about the vital link between rigorous journalism and a healthy democracy, and he was just suspended.
Why? Because he published a Substack newsletter that was littered with quotes entirely fabricated by AI. He used ChatGPT and Perplexity.
He was using these tools to summarize complex reports and generate copy, and the AI hallucinated false quotes and attributed them to real people. He then published those quotes without ever picking up the phone to check if the individuals had actually said those words.
It's Journalism 101.
Right. Ultimately, 7 different individuals had to publicly come forward and confirm to investigators that the statements attributed to them were complete works of fiction.
But what I found chilling wasn't just the mistake, it was his excuse. He didn't claim it was a technical glitch. He didn't say that the software tricked him. He said, and I quote, "These language models are so good that they produce irresistible quotes you are tempted to use as an author."
Yeah.
He didn't verify them because they sounded too perfectly aligned with his narrative to check.
He abandoned his professional skepticism because the machine gave him exactly what he wanted to hear. And we saw the exact same psychological failure happen in the legal system.
Down at Kirkcaldy Sheriff Court in Scotland.
Yes. A commercial landlord company called Your Home Partners was trying to recover £5,000 in rent arrears from a tenant. To bolster their case, they submitted a formal legal argument relying heavily on the Interest on Debts Scotland Act 1985.
A piece of legislation that does not exist anywhere.
It was a total anthem. It was entirely hallucinated by a generative AI model. The landlord also cited several fictitious tribunal decisions to back up the fake law.
And the judge caught it.
Oh, yeah. The judge, Sheriff John McRitchie, was astounded. He had to formally warn the company that submitting false legal references to a court risks contempt of court proceedings. And in Scotland, contempt of court carries potential prison time.
Wow.
The judge noted that there is a very fine line between being careless with a chatbot and actively showing contempt for the justice system by refusing to verify your own legal filings.
I mean, how does a landlord or their legal representation not do a 5-second Google search to see if the law they were basing their entire case on actually exists?
It's the blind trust in the machine.
And we are seeing this exact same failure in the publishing industry. Hachette, which is one of the big 5 traditional publishers in the world, just had to pull a horror novel called Shy Girl from shelves in both the UK and US markets. Why? Because readers on Reddit and Goodreads did the forensic work and realized the prose was riddled with telltale signs of AI generation.
The author claims that an acquaintance she hired to help with editing used the AI tools without her knowledge. But regardless of who pressed the button, the terrifying point for the industry is that a fully AI-generated or heavily AI-manipulated manuscript made it past multiple layers of professional, highly paid editors at a major publishing house.
It bypassed the traditional quality controls entirely.
Exactly.
The crisis of authenticity has gotten so bad that the Society of Authors is now desperately launching a human-authored certification logo. It's like an organic sticker on a banana, but just to prove a book was actually written by a person.
It's wild that we need that now.
Even the basic infrastructure of how we find information is actively distorting reality. The tech site The Verge caught Google Search running an incredibly reckless experiment. Google was actively rewriting publisher headlines using AI right there in the traditional search results.
And they weren't just summarizing, they were altering the meaning. The Verge showed an example where Google took a headline that was highly critical of a specific AI tool, and the Google AI shortened it so aggressively that it completely inverted the editorial intent.
So it made a scathing critique look like a glowing endorsement.
What's fascinating here is the underlying mechanical reason why these systems hallucinate so confidently, and more importantly, why smart humans keep falling for it.
Break that down. Why is it happening?
To understand the mechanics, you have to look at this bizarre story about a startup called Memvid. They are paying human workers $800 a day to act as an AI bully.
Honestly, professional AI bully is the best job title of the 21st century. What exactly are they doing for $800 a day?
Their entire job is to log on and deliberately frustrate, confuse, and argue with commercial chatbots over an 8-hour shift. They push the AI to its absolute limits. Because recent academic research presented at a major 2025 conference revealed a massive flaw in the architecture of these models. The researchers found that industry-leading AI systems suffer a 30% to 60% drop in accuracy when they are engaged in long, sustained conversations or asked to process massive book-length documents.
Really?
Yes. As the context window stretches, the AI literally loses the thread of what it is talking about.
They suffer from severe digital short-term memory loss.
Exactly. But, and this is the crucial part, the AI doesn't tell you it has forgotten the context. It doesn't say, I'm sorry, I've lost my place. It is programmed to always provide an answer. So it smoothly, confidently invents plausible-sounding facts to fill the gap in its memory.
It just makes it up.
And the irony is profound. Newsrooms, law firms, and giant publishers are treating these systems like infallible, tireless junior assistants who have read every book in the world. But in reality, they are relying on software that cannot reliably remember what was said 20 minutes ago.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. Think about how we, as humans, are biologically wired to judge credibility. If you are at a dinner party and someone is speaking to you, and they are incredibly articulate, their grammar is flawless, their vocabulary is vast, and they speak with absolute unwavering certainty.
You tend to believe them.
Yes.
Yes.
We conflate eloquence with accuracy. The AI is essentially a brilliantly articulate con artist wearing a bespoke $1,000 suit. Because the output looks so professional, a seasoned journalist like Vandermeers or a landlord in court or an editor at Hachette just instinctively turns off their critical thinking. We haven't just automated text generation, we have literally automated false confidence on an industrial scale.
And that false confidence is deeply contagious. When the output on the screen looks structurally perfect, the human in the loop assumes the underlying factual foundation must be perfect too. It's a massive cognitive blind spot.
So, if we clearly cannot trust the output that these models are generating, we have to flip the equation and look at the inputs. What exactly are these trillion-dollar models being built on?
The data.
Which brings us to the messy, totally unresolved, intensely bitter battle over intellectual property. Let's talk about the copyright collision.
This is where the UK government finds itself completely paralyzed. Technology Secretary Liz Kendall recently had to publicly abandon the government's preferred opt-out approach to AI copyright training.
Let's clarify what that actually meant.
Mhm.
The opt-out approach meant that giant AI companies could legally scrape your work, your articles, your music, your code, your photos to train their models for free unless you proactively navigated a complex legal process to file paperwork to stop them.
Correct. The default was that your data belonged to the training algorithm. And when the government floated this, they faced a massive, organized backlash from the UK's creative sector. We're talking about heavyweights.
Micro.
Sir Elton John, Dua Lipa, massive unions like Equity and the Society of Authors all mobilized. They argued quite forcefully that allowing US tech behemoths to scrape UK creative work by default would be, to quote their open letter, an act of national self-sabotage.
They argued it would hollow out a creative industry that generates billions for the UK economy.
Yes.
Now, just looking at the policy mechanics of this, the government buckled under the pressure and dropped the opt-out plan, but they didn't replace it with anything. They just kicked the can down the road. They currently have no official policy, leaving 4 broad options on the table, ranging from a full copyright waiver for tech firms to forcing the tech firms to heavily license and pay for every single piece of data they touch.
And while the government stalls, the private sector is taking matters into its own hands. The lawsuits are escalating dramatically, and they are getting highly creative. Look at the case of Encyclopedia Britannica suing OpenAI.
Oh, this one is fascinating.
On the surface, it looks like a standard copyright claim. They are angry that OpenAI allegedly scraped 100,000 of their articles without permission.
But there is a massive legal twist here.
There is. Britannica isn't just relying on copyright law. They are invoking the Lanham Act.
And the Lanham Act is U.S. trademark law, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's usually what Nike uses if someone makes counterfeit sneakers with a swoosh on them. How does that apply to an AI chatbot?
It comes back to the hallucinations we just discussed. Britannica is targeting a specific AI workflow called Retrieval Augmented Generation, or RAG. When you ask ChatGPT a complex question, sometimes it searches the live web, reads a few articles, and synthesizes an answer.
Right.
Britannica argues that during this RAG process, the AI regularly hallucinates fake, inaccurate facts, and then, crucially, it falsely attributes those fake facts to Encyclopedia Britannica in its citations.
Wow.
They are arguing that OpenAI is essentially counterfeiting their brand. They are saying, you aren't just stealing our text, you are putting stupid, factually incorrect words in our mouth and actively destroying our centuries-old reputation for rigorous accuracy.
That is a brilliant legal strategy. It shifts the argument from, you stole our past work, to, you are actively damaging our future business. And this collision isn't just happening in text. We are seeing major ethical and regulatory battles in video and imagery as well.
The UK's Advertising Standards Authority, the ASA, just had to step in and ban a YouTube ad for a generative AI app called Pixvideo. The advertisement heavily implied that users could use their AI tool to digitally remove women's clothing from everyday photos.
Which is vile. And even though the developers claim the app doesn't actually allow that functionality, the ASA ruled the ad itself was deeply irresponsible and offensive. It shows that regulators are scrambling, mostly reactively, to enforce even basic safety and decency standards on these generative tools.
And in the entertainment industry, the copyright battle is extending beyond death. It was just announced that the late actor Val Kilmer is going to star posthumously in a new movie called As Deep as the Grave, playing a key role as a priest.
Seriously?
Yes. The studio is generating his entire performance, voice, and likeness using AI with the official consent of his estate.
But even with consent, that sets a staggering precedent. It's raising massive anxiety for actors' unions like SAG-AFTRA in the U.S. and Equity in the U.K. In fact, U.K. Equity members recently voted on a motion to outright refuse digital scanning on set.
Because of the long-term implications.
Right. They fear that once a studio has a 3D scan of your body and your voice, they can use it to generate performances in perpetuity, cutting the human actor out of future paychecks entirely.
What you're seeing across all these examples, text, video, likeness, is a profound global regulatory stall. It is not just the UK failing to find a copyright solution. Look at the European Union.
What's happening there?
They passed the landmark AI Act, but now the EU Council is actively proposing delaying the enforcement of the Act's high-risk rules by up to 16 months.
16 months. Why?
Because they simply do not have the technical standards ready. They passed the law, but they don't actually know how to measure or enforce compliance.
So everyone from Westminster to Brussels is just frozen in place.
Because they are facing the impossible fundamental math of AI training, here is the inescapable reality. If governments legally force AI companies to license every single piece of copyrighted data, every news article, every song, every photo, every book, the models become vastly more expensive, perhaps prohibitively expensive, to build.
It could choke off the entire industry.
Yes. But if they don't require licensing, these tech companies are essentially allowed to strip mine the entirety of human creativity for free, packaging it up to build trillion-dollar corporate valuations.
Which brings up a massive, glaring contradiction at the heart of the UK's strategy. Let's look at the two halves of what we've discussed so far. The UK government wants to win the global AI race, and they are spending £2.5 billion on supercomputers and atomic clocks to do it.
Right.
But simultaneously, they want to protect their world-leading creative industries, music, film, publishing, by potentially restricting access to training data. Aren't those two goals fundamentally mechanically at odds?
They are.
You cannot logically be the most frictionless, data-rich place in the world to train an AI model and the most fiercely protective place in the world for human copyright at the exact same time.
It is a classic zero-sum game. And right now, policymakers are desperately trying to draft legislation that pretends it is a win-win scenario, but the math doesn't support it.
And while the regulators argue about copyright waivers and high-risk compliance rules, the technology itself hasn't stopped to wait for them. In fact, over the last few months, it has fundamentally mutated. We are rapidly moving out of the era of the chatbot and into something much, much more powerful. We are shifting from AI that simply talks to AI that acts.
Agentic AI. Based on the source material, this is undoubtedly the most significant technological shift happening right now. It requires a total reframing of how we think about these tools.
So?
Well, a chatbot, like the version of ChatGPT most people are used to, is passive. It waits for you to type a prompt, and it gives you a paragraph of text in return. An AI agent is entirely different.
Right.
You give an agent a high-level goal, and it autonomously executes a series of complex tasks across different software platforms, websites, and APIs to achieve that goal without needing you to click every button.
Let's look at the promise of this first, because on paper, it sounds incredibly convenient. It sounds like having a brilliant digital butler. Starling Bank, here in the UK, has just launched the country's first agentic AI money manager, which they built on Google's Gemini architecture.
It's pretty advanced.
Yeah, you can literally use your voice to tell your banking app, analyze my grocery spending for the last 3 months, and set a strict budget for April, and the agent will independently sift through your data, create the categories, and set the limits.
And the payments industry is gearing up for this massive shift. Visa is currently running what they call agentic-ready trials with major UK banks, Barclays, HSBC, Nationwide.
What does agentic ready actually mean for a payment?
They are literally rewriting the payment infrastructure so that an AI agent operating on your behalf can securely initiate a financial transaction without you having to manually authorize the transfer.
And it's moving to the web browser, too. Perplexity just launched its Comet AI browser on iOS and for enterprise users. It features a built-in assistant that doesn't just search for a doctor. It can autonomously navigate the clinic's website, read their calendar, and fill out the complex appointment booking forms for you.
It sounds wonderful until you consider the danger, and the danger is terrifying, even for the most sophisticated tech companies on Earth. Look at the internal security incident at Meta, the company that owns Facebook and Instagram.
What happened there?
Meta was testing an internal AI agent designed to help their software engineers write code. One of their engineers asked the agent for help resolving a complex coding problem. The AI agent, acting autonomously, provided flawed engineering guidance.
Oh.
Yeah, the human engineer implemented it without realizing the error, and that mistake ended up exposing highly sensitive internal user and company data to unauthorized Meta employees for roughly 2 hours before the security team caught it and shut it down.
And if that level of catastrophic failure can happen accidentally inside a trillion-dollar tech behemoth with thousands of security engineers, imagine what the criminal element is doing intentionally. The sources include a deeply alarming threat assessment from Interpol.
Yes.
They are reporting that AI-powered fraud is now 4.5 times more profitable than traditional scam methods.
Because generative AI has completely eliminated all the old, obvious tells of a scam. There are no more Nigerian prince emails with terrible spelling or awkward grammar. The phishing emails are flawless. The deep fakes of your boss's voice on the phone are perfect.
Right.
But Interpol's biggest warning is specifically about autonomous agentic AI. They project that criminals will very soon be able to deploy a swarm of AI agents to handle an entire scam campaign completely autonomously.
So the human scammer doesn't even have to do the work.
Exactly. The agent will profile the victim on social media, write the highly targeted phishing email, execute the social engineering via an automated deepfake phone call, and then demand and route the crypto ransom, all while the human scammer sleeps.
This raises a profoundly important question, doesn't it? The fundamental difference in risk profiles between a chatbot and an agent.
Exactly. The stakes multiply exponentially. If a standard chatbot hallucinates, as we discussed earlier, you get a bad poem, or a fake legal citation, or a fabricated quote. That is bad, but the damage is usually contained to a piece of paper.
But if an agent hallucinates,
If an autonomous AI agent hallucinates while it is actively connected to your live bank account or your corporate inventory system or your sensitive patient database, the damage is active and immediate. It might autonomously transfer your life savings to a scammer, buy 10,000 units of the wrong product, or expose a sensitive database to the open internet.
there is a brilliant quote in our sources from a security specialist named Jameson O'Reilly that really crystallizes why this is so dangerous. He points out that human engineers and human employees carry what he calls institutional knowledge. A human knows what systems are fragile, what data is politically sensitive, what the unwritten rules of the office are.
Yeah, humans have context.
Right. AI agents have absolute zero institutional context. O'Reilly says that giving an AI agent unrestricted access to your corporate systems is like giving a junior intern the master keys to the main server room on their very first day of work and then leaving the building.
And to make matters worse, that context actually degrades the longer the agent operates, taking us right back to the short-term memory problem discovered by the AI bullies. If the agent is running a complex multi-day task, it will eventually lose the plot and start making confident, autonomous mistakes.
So let me put this directly to you, the listener. Think about your own life. Would you trust an AI agent living silently on your smartphone to independently negotiate with your bank's AI agent to manage your monthly mortgage payments?
That's the real test, isn't it?
Because that is not science fiction. That is exactly the infrastructure that Visa, Starling, and Perplexity are spending billions to build right now.
And they are deploying this technology into live, highly sensitive financial environments well before the cybersecurity industry has fully figured out how to contain an autonomous agent that decides, for whatever reason, to go off script.
Which perfectly sets up the final piece of this puzzle. In a landscape where the government is paralyzed, where the basic concept of institutional truth is fraying, and where digital agents are beginning to autonomously spend real money, how are the economics of the everyday business world actually shifting? Let's look at the winners, the losers, and the bitter ironies of this new economy.
Let's start with the workforce, because the data on potential displacement is highly specific. Research from GovAI and the Brookings Institution has mapped out the risk. They found that 6.1 million clerical and administrative workers in the UK and US are highly exposed to imminent AI automation.
But the tragedy of this data isn't just the exposure, it's the lack of mobility.
Exactly. These researchers point out that this specific cohort of clerical workers is the least able to adapt to the shock. They generally lack the transferable technical skills or the financial safety net required to take 6 months off to retrain for a new career.
And the demographics of that are brutal.
Yes. 86% of these most vulnerable administrative workers are women.
So while that massive displacement risk hangs over the administrative level, look at what is happening at the absolute top of the corporate ladder. Paul Griggs, the U.S. chief of the accounting giant PwC, essentially delivered a blunt ultimatum to his highly paid partners. He told them to adopt AI immediately or leave the firm.
It's adapt or die, even at the partner level.
Right. PwC is actively launching a new platform called PwC One. It offers automated consulting and audit services on a flat subscription basis. They're actively trying to kill the traditional hourly billing model that built the Big Four accounting firms in the first place.
It is a total divergence in outcomes. At the top, the equity partners are being handed bespoke, enterprise-grade AI tools to radically boost their profit margins and automate the grunt work. While at the bottom, the clerical workers who used to do that grunt work are facing outright displacement with no safety net.
And the engine driving this entire economic restructuring is a concept that NVIDIA's CEO Jensen Huang calls token economics.
Which is key to understanding all of this.
Explain token economics to me, because it sounds like crypto jargon, but it's actually the fundamental unit of the AI boom.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with cryptocurrency. In the context of large language models, a token is the basic unit of data the AI processes. It's roughly equivalent to a word or a piece of a word. When you ask ChatGPT a question, it calculates the answer token by token.
Okay, so it's a measure of output.
Right. Huang is pushing the idea that the cost to produce one token is the new fundamental currency of the global tech economy. And that cost is plummeting at an astonishing rate. 2 years ago, the cost for an AI to process 1 million tokens was roughly $33. Today, due to better chips and more efficient algorithms, that cost has dropped to just 9 cents.
9 cents, it's practically free. I think about it like the invention of the standardized shipping container in the 1950s. Before the container, loading a cargo ship was a slow, expensive manual process. The shipping container standardized the unit of transport, made it incredibly cheap to move goods globally, and completely reorganized the global economy.
That's a great analogy.
The token is the shipping container of the mind. It makes generating text, code, and analysis so cheap that it changes how every business operates.
Exactly, which is why OpenAI is suddenly launching smaller, hyperfast models like GPT 5.4 Mini and Nano. They don't need these models to write a brilliant novel. They need them to handle millions of tiny, high-volume, incredibly cheap, sub-agent workflows in the background of apps and websites. Compute is becoming as cheap, as invisible, and as ubiquitous as electricity.
But here's the fascinating part. In an economy that is suddenly flooded with practically free, endlessly abundant AI-generated content, much of it hallucinatory or fake, who are the unlikely winners, Trustpilot.
Yes. Trustpilot shares recently surged, driven by the fact that AI-driven search click-throughs to their site jumped by an astounding 1,490%.
Why? Why does an advanced AI care about a website where people complain about late deliveries?
Because as these new AI shopping agents scour the web to make purchasing decisions for their human users, they run into a wall. The AI can read the specs of a television, but it cannot organically determine if the television is actually good or if the seller is a scammer.
It can't feel.
Right. It desperately needs structured, verified, trustworthy human review data to function. It needs to know what real humans think. So, in an ocean of synthetic garbage, platforms that hold verified, irrefutable human trust become incredibly valuable assets.
And that leads us to the ultimate, darkly comedic irony of this entire deep dive. Major AI companies, OpenAI, Google, Anthropic, the titans of the industry, are currently banding together to fund a $12.5 million grant to the Linux Foundation.
And the reason they are doing this is spectacular. They are paying out millions because their own incredible AI tools have made it so trivially easy for random users to generate highly complex, totally plausible-looking security vulnerability reports.
Right. And people are submitting these fake AI-generated bug reports to open-source software projects. The team running the Crucial CURL project, which is open-source code that basically runs data transfers for the entire internet, has been completely overwhelmed.
It's a massive denial of service, essentially.
Yeah. They are drowning in a flood of fake automated reports, and the human volunteers have to waste hours investigating each one to see if it's real.
The AI company has essentially built a tool that is accidentally breaking the human-run open-source software supply chain. So now, those same AI companies are paying millions of dollars to help the human volunteers clean up the mess their own algorithms created. The arsonists are literally paying the salaries of the fire brigade.
So what does this all mean? When you step back and look at the whole board, it means the market does not wait for governance.
No, it doesn't.
The value in the economy is rapidly hollowing out the middle and shifting to two extreme poles. On one end, the massive fortunes are flowing to those who own the physical hard infrastructure, the data centers, the atomic clocks, the massive NVIDIA supercomputers. On the exact opposite end, the value is flowing to those who own verified, irrefutable human trust, like Trustpilot.
Everything in the middle, the routine clerical work, the unverified text, the traditional hourly billing, is just being aggressively hollowed out by the plunging cost of tokens.
It is a profound, violent reshaping of where value sits in society. We have covered an immense amount of ground today. Let's distill this journey.
Okay.
We started by looking at the UK government writing its biggest checks ever, a £2.5 billion mobilization for quantum computing, for exaflop supercomputers, for atomic clocks, and for training 10 million workers. They are desperately trying to build the physical foundation of the future so they don't get left behind.
Yet, as we've seen across all our sources, the very people and institutions tasked with governing that future are currently buckling under the strain. The judges dealing with completely hallucinated laws, the veteran editors publishing fake quotes because they sounded too good, the lawmakers utterly paralyzed on how to handle copyright, and the corporate security teams accidentally leaking data via their own helpful chatbots.
They are all failing to manage even the early primitive versions of this technology. And as we move out of the chatbot era and into the era of agentic AI, where the software doesn't just talk to us, but actually executes our finances, fills out our forms, and writes our code autonomously, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought.
What's that?
It's something we haven't explicitly discussed, but honestly, it feels like the only logical conclusion to everything we've unpacked today. As human regulators fall further and further behind, and as these digital agents become faster, cheaper, and more radically autonomous, the ultimate solution to governing AI might not be human laws or human judges at all. They are simply too slow.
That's a chilling thought.
We may very soon find ourselves forced to build a secondary, highly regulated class of governance AIs, artificial intelligence programs whose sole hard-coded existence is to police, audit, and mathematically restrain the very agents we just unleashed into the wild.
Fighting fire with fire.
Exactly. Because when the landlord shows up with a hallucinated law and the multi-billion-pound system is moving too incredibly fast for the human judge to catch it, maybe the only thing that can actually stop an AI is another AI. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the Output CC, keep checking your sources, and we will see you next time.